He told her to walk away. He smirked, said she wouldn't last a day without him. But when she did walk, the world stopped and started clapping. This is the story of a man who thought his power was everything, and a woman who taught him what real power looks like when it's quiet and doesn't beg to be seen. He mocked his own wife for refusing to accept his mistress. Have you ever been betrayed by someone who thought you'd never leave? Have you ever been told you weren't enough by the person who once swore you were everything? Sharon Alden stayed silent for too long, until her silence became strategy, and Kaylan Dravos, the billionaire who thought he owned the game, learned what it felt like to be left behind. But what happens when the woman you dismissed becomes the woman everyone's watching? Would you try to win her back, or watch her build a world where you don't exist? If you believe love should never come with humiliation, if you believe real strength is knowing when to leave, then this story is for you. Like, comment and subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories. Let's begin. The chandelier above the marble kitchen island sparkled with curated warmth. Every chair was designer, every candle unscented, perfectly aligned. Everything was curated, except the silence. Sharon Alden stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, a glass of untouched wine in her hand. Below her, the city glowed like fireflies in glass jars. She had lived in this penthouse for 5 years, but tonight it felt like a museum. Cold, beautiful, dead. Behind her, the sound of leather shoes clicked faintly against the polished floor. Kaylan Dravos, tech billionaire, self-made, the papers said, son of a Detroit mechanic, turned app mogul by 25, billionaire by 32. Her husband. Dinner? He asked, not looking up from his phone. I already ate, she replied, not looking back. There it was again, that paper-thin exchange that had become their new normal. She wasn't angry anymore. That would mean she still expected more. Kaylan opened the fridge, pulled out a bottle of sparkling water, and leaned against the counter. You're still doing that fundraiser at the Met next week? She nodded. He glanced up. Do I need to be there? Her silence was her answer. 3 years ago, he would have asked her what color gown she was wearing, or if the pianist she loved had confirmed. Now, he checked if Reva Lynn would be there before committing. Sharon didn't need confirmation. She'd seen the shift. The missed calls, the sudden business trips, the change in cologne, the way he stopped saying her name in public. But the moment it became real wasn't when she found the photo. It wasn't even when she overheard Reva's laugh on speakerphone from his office. It was when he stopped being afraid to show it. That morning, the tabloids had exploded. Kaylan Dravos and mysterious beauty spotted in Santorini. The picture was grainy, but it didn't have to be high-res. Reva's red dress stood out like a wound. Kaylan's hand on her waist confirmed everything. He had denied it, briefly, said it was business, but he didn't delete the photo when she asked. Didn't even raise his voice to fake a defense. He simply shrugged. You're overthinking it. Sharon didn't cry. She didn't throw anything. She poured herself tea with honey, then said nothing at all. Later that night, she sat on their bed alone, flipping through a wedding album. They had married in Tuscany. Quiet vineyard ceremony. No media, just 60 guests and a soft breeze. Kaylan looked younger then, less polished, more human. She had worn a dress with pockets. Kaylan joked she could keep their future in there. Now, he didn't even remember the name of the officiant. Sharon touched the spine of the album and slowly closed it. The next morning, Kaylan entered the penthouse with Reva on speakerphone again. He walked past Sharon as if she were furniture. I'm thinking about backing that wellness app you mentioned, he said to Reva. The one with the daily reset prompts. You should be part of it. You get this space. Sharon looked up. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap. That was her idea, her concept, the one she had pitched to him years ago. He never supported it, but now, with Reva's voice in his ear, it was worth his money. That night, Sharon opened a locked folder on her laptop, Aethra, an idea born from stress, loneliness, and the pressure of being everything to everyone. She had shelved it after her wedding. Kaylan said there was no market for digital healing. Now, Someone else's voice made him believe. She stared at the files, designs, journals, notes, budgets. Her name was on every slide. She exhaled slowly and closed the laptop again, for now. The next morning, she stepped into her walk-in closet. The clothing was immaculate, untouched. Designer names she no longer cared about. Everything she had, he took credit for. She walked out wearing jeans and a neutral coat. No makeup, no ring. She visited her old apartment in Harlem. It was now a studio rental. She stared at the bricks, touched the intercom. No one buzzed her in, but something inside her clicked back into place. She didn't need penthouses. She needed peace. Later that night, at the foundation office, her assistant found her rewriting old project notes by hand. "I didn't know we were rebranding," the assistant said, confused. Seren smiled softly. "We're not," she replied. "But I am." Kaylin returned home that evening at 10:43 p.m. No apology, no flowers, no explanation, just a head nod toward Seren, who sat in the reading nook by the fireplace, with a soft scarf over her shoulders and a thick book resting in her lap. He poured himself whiskey, no ice. He didn't ask if she needed anything. He hadn't asked in months. "I'll be in Chicago for the Metrics retreat," he said. Seren turned a page slowly. "That's the same weekend as my event." Kaylin paused. "You'll be fine. You always are." Then he left the room. Reva Lynn was no secret anymore. She didn't have to be. The moment tabloids stopped asking questions, Kaylin stopped pretending. At a recent board dinner, she had arrived first. Sat next to Kaylin. Seren was seated 2 chairs down. Reva gave a short speech about wellness and high-performance leadership, something Seren had written herself in a proposal 3 years earlier. She remembered the wording, almost line for line. The room clapped. Kaylin didn't look at Seren once. That night, Seren returned home in silence. She stepped into her closet and ran her fingers across the dress she'd worn, a dark green silk gown that barely got photographed. Not because it wasn't beautiful, but because the media no longer saw her as the wife. She was now his first. On Tuesday, she met with the board of her foundation. It had grown from a single urban garden project to an international mentorship network for women in tech. One of the directors asked her, "Will your husband be attending the next funding summit?" Seren smiled lightly. "No, he's investing elsewhere these days." They laughed. She didn't. By Thursday, her decision was made. She sent an internal memo, effective immediately. "I will begin my transition from executive lead." No explanation, no press release. When her assistant asked where she was going, Seren gave a small smile. Home, but she wasn't talking about the penthouse. Back at the penthouse that night, Kaylin leaned over the kitchen counter, reading his screen. "Reva's going to Dubai in March. I might fly out for that pitch event." Seren stirred her tea. "No milk, no sugar." "I won't be here," she replied. He looked up, mildly curious. "Where are you going? Does it matter?" He gave a tight shrug and turned back to his screen. "Don't forget to leave the security code with the front desk." It was the last time she would ever sit in that kitchen. That weekend, Seren took 1 suitcase, a small leather-bound notebook, and her late mother's bracelet. That was it. No designer luggage, no personal assistant, no dramatic farewell. On the kitchen counter, she left a handwritten note. "You were wrong. I never needed your world to breathe." By Monday morning, her closet was empty. The wardrobe team emailed Kaylin. "Should we prepare Mrs. Dravos's outfits for the Paris summit?" He replied with a single word, "No." Days passed. No calls, no messages, no confrontation. Kaylin didn't ask around. He believed she'd return. They always returned, didn't they? But then Reva forwarded him a headline. Seren Alden seen leaving private VC meeting in Tribeca. New project rumored. Kaylin blinked. Another article followed. Alden sighted in Lisbon. Low profile, but not low impact. He scoffed, shut his laptop, and poured himself another drink. "Publicity stunt," he muttered. But his jaw tightened. What bothered him wasn't the possibility that she was rebuilding. It was that she hadn't tried to win. No begging, no fighting, no threats. She left, and then she went silent. By the second week, her number was deactivated. Her foundation email bounced back. Even her friends gave rehearsed answers. We haven't heard from her. She needed space. Kalen laughed to himself. Space from what? From being taken care of. But one night, past midnight, he opened a drawer in his office and found a business card. It was hers. The original mock-up she had made years ago. Aethra founder, Seren Alden healing isn't loud, but it's necessary. He stared at it for a long time, then tucked it back into the drawer, still not believing she'd do anything real with it, still not believing she could. If you've ever been underestimated in your own home, if you've ever watched someone rewrite your ideas and call them their own, then you know how Seren felt. Comment below if you've ever had to start over quietly, and hit that like button if you believe dignity should never be mistaken for weakness. Subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories, where every silence has a voice. The lights were dimmed low, casting a soft golden hue over the velvet-draped ballroom. Seren stood backstage, adjusting the clasp on her silver bracelet. Her mother's. Hundreds of guests filled the tables. Investors, board members, ambassadors. This was her night. Her team had worked for months on the Alden Foundation's largest event. To date, funding 5 new women in tech hubs across underserved cities. This night was supposed to be her statement to the world. She took a calming breath, checked the microphone, reviewed her closing speech again. But then she saw him. Kalen, not alone. He entered with Riva. Riva wore a red gown. Again, not subtle, not safe. A dress that screamed attention. Kalen didn't stop her, didn't ask her to tone it down. He walked in as if she belonged beside him. Seren watched from backstage, calm on the outside, burning beneath. "Why is she here?" her assistant whispered. "I'm not surprised," Seren murmured. "Just disappointed." He didn't even ask. The program began. Seren took the stage first, introducing keynote speakers and honorees. She thanked every partner, every mentor, every community that made the foundation what it was. Polite applause followed. She returned to her seat. A few minutes later, it was time for the founder's toast, the final tradition of the night. Her name was on the program. The spotlight shifted to Kalen. Seren froze. What was he doing? He stood, adjusted his jacket, and smiled at the crowd. "I'd like to take a moment to recognize someone whose insight has helped shape where we're headed next. Someone who's been guiding me into the future of wellness and innovation." Seren blinked. Kalen turned toward Riva. "Riva Lynn." There was a pause, a moment of disorientation in the room. A few awkward claps started. Riva stood, modestly at first, then walked up as if she owned the ballroom. Seren sat completely still, no emotion on her face, no reaction. Inside, though, her ribs squeezed against her heart like a vice. Riva's toast was polished. She spoke about mental stamina, high-functioning recovery, and adaptive leadership, words Seren had used in her own early work, years ago. But tonight, they echoed in someone else's voice. Riva ended with a quote. Kalen laughed, placing his hand on her lower back as she stepped down. The applause this time was louder. Seren stood and quietly walked out to the hallway. She didn't need to cry. She just needed air. Outside the ballroom, the cold air bit at her bare shoulders. She stepped away from the glass entrance and leaned against the stone pillar. She had designed this event to celebrate her legacy. And now, she had watched her name become invisible in the house she built. After 20 minutes, Kalen stepped out, scanning for her. "There you are," he said. "Was Riva's appearance your idea?" She had something to say. "It fit." "You mean she fit?" Seren said, still looking away. "She fits your new narrative." Kalen tilted his head. "She's sharp, ambitious. She gets it." "I get it too," Seren whispered. "No, you don't," he replied. "You want everything to stay soft and emotional. But in this world, power moves loud. She doesn't hold back. She brings results. Seren turned to him, eyes steady. So what do I bring, Kalen? He didn't answer, just shrugged. That was the moment, the one that ended everything inside her. She didn't leave the event early. She returned, smiled, posed for photos. She gave her final speech, short, firm, composed. The crowd clapped. Many clapped louder than before. But Seren wasn't there anymore. Only her shell stood on that stage. The woman she used to be had walked out into the wind and left something behind. The morning after the gala, social media was buzzing, but not about Seren. The photos? All of Riva Lynn. The soundbites? Kalen's toast. The caption? Billionaire Kalen Dravos unveils surprise partner in new wellness project. Seren saw the headline while lacing her shoes. She didn't flinch. Her face, still fresh from a sleepless night, didn't break. Instead, she closed the article, slipped on her coat, and left. At the Alden Foundation, the mood was upbeat. Donations were rolling in. Pledges were high. Her staff thought the night had been a success. To them, it had been. They didn't know she had spent 20 minutes in the hallway, gathering the pieces of her dignity. They didn't know that the person being credited for wellness insights had once laughed at Seren for pitching a similar idea. They didn't know that she had stood in that ballroom with her name on the banner, yet felt like a ghost in her own legacy. In the boardroom, she sipped black coffee while reviewing numbers. No emotion, no delay, no meltdown. Then came the email from the PR consultant. Kalen and Riva will be speaking at a digital wellness panel in 2 weeks. Would you like us to coordinate brand alignment, since your foundation has crossover interest? She stared at the message. No anger, just a slow shake of the head. No, she typed back. One of us doesn't need alignment anymore. She hit send. Later that evening, she sat in her private office, staring at the original pitch deck for Aethra, the wellness startup she once begged Kalen to fund. He had dismissed it then. Now he praised Riva for the same vocabulary, same market, same soul. She whispered to herself, "You wanted loud. I'll show you what quiet can do." That night, while the city pulsed beneath her, Seren opened a blank document. She titled it, Exit Blueprint. 3 days later, she entered the penthouse with her steps lighter than usual. She didn't call for the house staff. She didn't ask about Kalen's meetings. She didn't look at the security footage. She simply moved from room to room, taking mental inventory, not of what to pack, but of what to leave behind. In the walk-in closet, she selected only a few neutral pieces. In the study, she retrieved a USB drive from her locked drawer. In the bedroom, she stared at the bed and whispered, "I haven't rested here in over a year." By morning, she left a copy of the Foundation's Gala Success Report on Kalen's desk. Attached was a sticky note. No need to approve. This will be my last signature. She didn't write a resignation letter. She wrote a transfer of vision. She named successors, confirmed ongoing project timelines, and locked her personal archive. She walked into the staff meeting that week and said, "The Alden Foundation is not a person, it's a cause, and that cause will grow without my face tied to it." There was stunned silence. One person clapped. Then another. Then everyone stood. Except Seren. She was already halfway out the door. Kalen received the formal transition email at 3:04 p.m. He didn't reply. He didn't call. He thought it was a dramatic phase. He thought she'd come back once she cooled off. That night, Kalen returned to the penthouse and found it clean. Sterile. Soulless. No music. No scarf draped over the reading chair. No tea on the warmer. He poured whiskey, then realized the good crystal was gone. That was hers. He opened his calendar and found an invite cancellation. Withdrawal from Metrics Tech dinner. S. Dravos, he frowned. Not even a courtesy explanation. Then he checked her social feed. Nothing. Just her last post from 2 weeks ago. A photo of a sunset over Lisbon. Caption, "Peace is a place, not a prize." The next morning, Riva arrived early. Hair curled, nails done, bright lipstick, bigger attitude. "Did you see Forbes?" she asked. He hadn't. She turned her phone toward him. Sources say Seren Alden seen with Rothan Global VP in New York. Wellness startup discussions rumored. Kalen blinked. He read the byline twice. Riva raised her eyebrows. She's moving fast. She's bluffing, he said flatly. But his voice cracked slightly. That weekend, he went to the gala replay online, fast-forwarded through Riva's speech, watched Seren's final words again. She was calm, measured, her voice steady. There's no legacy more lasting than dignity, and there's no dignity more powerful than the kind that stays silent, even when it's ignored. He stared, paused it, replayed it. She hadn't looked at him once in that whole speech, and that's when it hit him. She hadn't spoken for sympathy. She had spoken for closure, her own. He closed the laptop, sat in silence, and for the first time in years, he felt what she must have felt for months. Invisible. The city below pulsed with quiet chaos. Yellow cabs, steam grates, sirens in the distance. It was just past midnight. Seren stood on the balcony, her arms folded over her chest. The silk robe barely shielded her from the wind, but she didn't move. Her thoughts did the trembling. Behind her, glass doors slid open. Kalen stepped out, phone still in hand, laughter fading from his last call. Riva, probably. His voice still held the flirtation. "Long night?" Seren asked without turning. He paused. "You're still up?" She glanced over her shoulder. Hard to sleep when someone's rehearsing lies 6 feet away. Kalen frowned. "You want to start a fight?" "I want to know when my marriage turned into a strategy deck." He walked past her, leaned on the balcony railing, and sipped from his whiskey glass. "Seren, you're spiraling. It's late. Let's not do this now." She stared at him, calm, cold. "You brought her to my gala." He smirked. "She brought value." "You want the truth?" "I want respect." "She earned that spot." "No, she stole it. From me." "Using ideas you once said were useless." Kalen chuckled, the sound sharp. "You're upset I gave Riva a mic?" "I'm upset that my husband doesn't know the difference between building and betrayal." He turned fully to face her. "You've had the easy life, Seren. Lavish home, my name, my money, my world. And now you want to play martyr because I gave someone else a platform." Her mouth parted slightly. She blinked once. "You think I've been living off you?" Kalen stepped closer. "Tell me something. Where would you be if I didn't put you in that first boardroom? If I didn't bankroll your foundation? If I didn't give you the last name that gets doors opened?" Seren let the silence speak. Then, with quiet grace, she said, "The question isn't where I'd be without you. It's where I'll go, now that I know I was never seen." Kalen scoffed. "You're being dramatic." "No," she replied. "I'm done being silent." She walked toward the glass door. Kalen's voice followed her. "You're not leaving." She stopped, just inside the doorway. "Watch me." Inside, the air felt thicker. She walked to the study and opened a drawer that hadn't been touched in years. Inside, a flash drive labeled Aethra, original build. She had pitched it to him once, sitting on this very floor, barefoot, full of hope. He had laughed. Meditation for the elite. No one's paying for quiet. But now, he was building quiet with someone else, calling it visionary. That night, Seren stayed up organizing files. She printed diagrams, prototypes, email trails, all from 4 years ago. Everything he said was nothing. Everything Riva had recycled. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She curated, like a woman preparing to leave, not because she was broken, but because she was done being someone else's invisible scaffolding. The next morning, she entered the kitchen early. Kalen sat at the island, scrolling through his phone. He didn't look up. "You didn't sleep again?" he asked. "No." He poured coffee into a mug, slid it toward her. She didn't touch it. "I want this to stop," she said. Kalen exhaled, annoyed. "We're doing this again?" "Yes." "One last time." He leaned back. "You're choosing chaos over comfort." "No, I'm choosing myself over humiliation." He laughed, low, cynical. "You're bluffing." Seren stood straighter. I want you to end it with her. Now. He shook his head. You don't dictate my life. I'm not dictating. I'm asking, because you made vows. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, Reva stays. Seren blinked. Kaelin added, she understands my world. She doesn't nag. She gets it. Seren's voice was barely above a whisper. I used to get it. No, he said. You used to fit it. That was the moment it broke. She turned toward the door. Kaelin's voice stopped her. If you don't like how I live, he said, walk. You won't survive a day without me. Silence. That sentence didn't just land, it scorched. Seren turned back slowly. You mean financially? He smirked. Emotionally, professionally, all of it. I built this world. You benefit from it. She held his gaze for a beat longer, then walked upstairs. Not fast, not angry, just done. By nightfall, the flash drive was in her purse. The plans were in motion. And Kaelin? He was in another call, laughing again, like nothing had just collapsed around him. Seren didn't sleep that night. Not because of sorrow, because of clarity. She stayed up scanning files, deleting digital traces, and organizing backups. Her moves weren't emotional. They were surgical. At 3:14 a.m., she sat in the living room, cross-legged on the carpet, sipping tea from the same mug she used before their wedding. On the side, the faintly faded letters, Peace doesn't beg for space. It takes it. She opened her email drafts folder. Inside was an unsent message titled, To the Man Who Thought I'd Stay. She hovered over it, then deleted it. He didn't deserve words. He deserved absence. Later that day, she dressed in the quiet of the guest bedroom. Simple black trousers, a soft grey sweater, and loafers. No jewelry. No makeup, no perfume. Her presence would no longer be his prize. She packed one suitcase. She left the heels behind. The gowns, the pearls, the emerald gift he bought after the last fight. She kept her mother's bracelet and the flash drive. At 10:05 a.m., Seren walked into a quiet cafe downtown. It was where she used to write before marriage, before titles swallowed purpose. She ordered mint tea and opened her laptop. She reactivated a dormant domain. She sent one email to a VC she had met once, 5 years ago. Back then, she was just the strategist wife. This time, she signed it, Seren Alden, co-founder, Aethra. The reply came in 10 minutes. Been waiting for this pitch. Let's talk. By noon, she had booked a one-way flight to Lisbon. No return date, no team, no media release. She didn't want attention. She wanted traction. Back at the penthouse, she sat on the edge of the bed, not her side. Just the edge. She looked at the skyline. She remembered the night he proposed, on the balcony, nervous, pretending not to be. Back then, she thought love meant building together. Now she knew, real love doesn't ask you to shrink. She walked into the study and placed a sealed envelope on the desk. Inside, her foundation resignation transfer documents passwords, and one line handwritten at the top. This is what I built, while being ignored. In the kitchen, she left the wine he used to mock. The one she bought from the small vineyard where they honeymooned. He once said, "This bottle tastes like dust." Now it stood unopened, like everything she tried to give. She didn't cry, didn't flinch, didn't pause. At 4:20 p.m., the driver arrived. She asked him to park 2 blocks away. She wanted to walk. Just before stepping out, she looked around the penthouse one last time. It was spotless, empty, perfectly staged, like a museum, a place people visited but never lived in. As she stepped into the hallway, the security guard nodded. "Mrs. Dravos, should I let Mr. Dravos know you left?" Seren smiled faintly. No need. He already did. By the time Kaelin came home that evening, the only thing left of her was the scent of lavender from the diffuser, and the absence. He called her name once, then again, checked her closet, then the office, then his phone. Nothing. She was gone, and she hadn't slammed the door. She had simply removed herself. The next morning, he received an alert on his phone. Flight tracker. It wasn't hers, but it was linked to their shared account. Destination, Lisbon. He blinked, didn't believe it, then checked the drawer in the kitchen. Her mother's bracelet was gone. That's when he knew she wasn't bluffing. At his office, Riva walked in wearing one of the branded jackets from the new wellness campaign. She leaned in and said, "You coming to the launch dinner?" Kalen didn't respond right away. Instead, he stared at the notification still open on his screen. He tapped the side of his phone, then said, "Go without me." That night, he sat in the reading nook, the one Seren loved, the one he always ignored. He picked up the book still sitting there, a bookmark halfway through. Inside, a note scribbled in the margin. "I miss the version of me that believed this could be saved." He stared at that line for a long time. Lisbon was warmer than she remembered. The air smelled of orange blossoms and old stone. Seren walked along Rua Augusta with a linen notebook tucked under her arm and sunglasses shielding her tired eyes. She hadn't booked a 5-star hotel. No ocean view suite. No luxury car waiting. She rented a modest 2-bedroom apartment above a bookstore. She didn't want to be seen. She wanted to rebuild. The first few days were quiet. Jet lag, tea, walks at sunrise. Her phone stayed off. Her calendar stayed empty. It felt unfamiliar until it didn't. By day 3, she had cleared a corner of the apartment to function as a mini-office. A laptop. Post-its. Index cards filled with phrases like, "No screens for 60 mins before bed, built-in micro breaks, digital healing isn't indulgence, it's hygiene." These were her principles, and they were the foundation of something real. She had pitched Aethra 4 years ago. Back then, no one listened. Back then, she was still Seren Dravos. Now, she wasn't introducing herself with a married name. She was introducing herself with a mission. On the 5th day, she met Nico Vance again. He wasn't a stranger, more like a memory that had grown into a man. They had gone to the same graduate program years ago. He was the one who first told her, "Softness isn't weakness. It's the sign of someone who doesn't need to shout." Now, he was a managing partner at a boutique VC firm focused on wellness and sustainable design. They met at a small cafe tucked beneath an ivy-covered wall. Nico wore a navy blazer and a linen shirt. His smile was calm. He hugged her like an old friend, not like someone handling fragile glass. "You're still standing," he said. "Some days better than others," Seren replied. He poured her water, no questions asked, then leaned back. "I saw the gala online. You were composed." "Terrifying, actually." Seren let a quiet laugh escape. Felt like bleeding on stage while smiling. "Well," he said, "people bled with you." They spent the next 2 hours going over Aethra. She showed him her original flowchart. He sketched out a few prototype ideas on a napkin. By the end of the conversation, he said 5 words that wrapped her like a warm coat. "Let's make this real. Together." That night, Seren sat by the window, sipping cinnamon tea. No headlines. No spotlight. No man trying to talk over her voice. Just the city lights of Lisbon flickering like stars low to the ground. She smiled for the first time in a long while. Meanwhile, in New York, Kalen sat in a conference room, expressions stiff, eyes red. He was supposed to lead a panel about digital wellness in tech. Instead, he dismissed himself halfway through. The moderator carried on, but everyone noticed. Riva stormed into his office later that evening. "You're distracted," she snapped. "This is our moment, and you're spacing out like—" Kalen cut her off. "She's not coming back." Riva blinked. "Who?" He didn't answer. Didn't need to. Riva sighed dramatically. "She's playing the long game. PR buzz. Emotional equity. It's basic manipulation." Kalen finally looked up. "She's not playing anything," he said. "She's done," then turned his chair toward the window, ending the conversation. In Lisbon, Seren received her first email from a female founder in Nairobi. Subject line, "Your words gave me courage." Seren closed the laptop, and held the message in her heart. This was her beginning. No man needed to validate it. The whispers started in boardrooms. At first, they were casual. "Did you hear about Seren Alden? Isn't she in Europe? I thought she was still with Dravos." But then came the Forbes email blast. From ghosted to groundbreaker, Seren Alden launches Aethra, a silent power move in wellness tech. The headline landed like a meteor. It wasn't loud, but it shook the ground. Kaelin's assistant knocked once, then twice. He was already scrolling his phone. The cover image was hard to miss. Seren, standing in a Lisbon office, sleek black pantsuit, braids pinned back, no ring. The caption read, "This time, I built something no one can claim, no one can shame, and no one can mock." He stared at it, long. Riva walked in moments later, holding the same magazine. "Did you know she was talking to Rothan Global?" Kaelin's jaw clenched. "No. Well, she's their new lead partner. Rothan just pumped 40 million into Aethra." Kaelin looked up sharply. Riva added, "That's not the headline." He raised a brow. "She built it with Nico Vance." At that name, something in Kaelin's grip twitched. Riva smirked, like a warning. "They were close, right?" He said nothing, but his silence said too much. Across the ocean, Seren walked into her new Lisbon workspace. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. The whiteboard was full of sketches and digital wellness flow diagrams. On her desk sat a new plaque, a gift from her first Lisbon hire, Aethra HQ, where quiet eyes power. She smiled softly and picked up the prototype wearable. A simple bracelet with calming pulse feedback. This wasn't revenge. This was rhythm. Later that day, Nico arrived carrying lunch and a contract. She offered him tea. He declined. "Sign first," he teased. "I want you too deep in to back out." Seren chuckled and signed with a pen that felt heavier than it should. He watched her carefully. "You okay?" She nodded. "I think I'm finally home." He didn't ask about Kaelin. Didn't need to. Men like Nico understood that silence speaks louder than pain. Back in Manhattan, the Aethra launch had gone viral. Clips from Seren's recent panel surfaced online. She wore a soft beige wrap dress. No jewelry, no flair. She stood in front of a mostly male audience and said calmly, "They told me quiet doesn't win. They told me I was too soft, too slow, too idealistic. They forgot. That calm doesn't mean powerless. It means controlled." Kaelin watched the speech from his penthouse. Alone. He didn't drink this time. He just watched, then replayed it. Then again. Her voice didn't shake once. His phone buzzed. A message from his head of PR. "We've lost 2 major sponsors. They've moved to Aethra." He closed the phone, looked out the window. The skyline suddenly felt smaller. Meanwhile, Riva paced the floor of her condo, papers in hand. "I told him this would happen. I told him if he let her walk, she'd turn into the headline." She muttered, cursed, then stared at her reflection. The girl who won the man and lost the war. Back in Lisbon, Seren walked a quiet street with Nico. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Every so often, someone passed and offered a nod of recognition. She'd never wanted fame, but now it followed her, not like a spotlight, but like sunrise. Steady, unapologetic. As they stopped outside a bookstore, Nico finally asked, "Do you regret anything?" Seren thought for a moment. "Only that I waited so long to leave." The news didn't just trend. It thundered. Aethra closes $40 million Series A, backed by Rothan Global Seren. Alden returns to tech. Alone and stronger, she built IT in silence. Now the world listens. Within hours of Forbes releasing the cover story, Twitter was flooded with reposts of Seren's photo, back straight, chin high, her arms folded in front of a sunlit window overlooking Lisbon. No flashy colors, no posed smile. Just a woman looking like she didn't come back to compete. She came back to own. In Midtown Manhattan, the boardroom of Dravos Technologies was unusually quiet. All screens displayed the same article. The company name Aethra had replaced every major talking point of the day. One executive coughed. Another shifted uncomfortably. Then someone finally said it. "This is bad." Kaylin sat at the head of the table. Expression unreadable. Phone silent. Mind roaring. "She used Rothan Global," one director muttered. "Of all firms." Rothan wasn't just a competitor. They were Kaylin's fiercest rival. 2 years ago, Rothan outbid him on a government contract that nearly tanked his expansion into Asia. Now they were backing his ex-wife's solo venture. With $40 million, do we issue a statement? The PR rep asked. Stay ahead of it. Kaylin shook his head once. No comment. But she was... I said no comment. The room fell quiet again. Back at his office, Kaylin shut the door. He walked to the minibar, poured water, not whiskey. He sat and watched the video everyone else was watching. Seren's keynote. Her voice filled the space like it had once filled their kitchen. Steady, elegant, controlled. They said silence means surrender. I say silence builds stamina. While the world mocks, we mold. While they gossip, we grow. While they boast, we build. The crowd in the video applauded, but all Kaylin heard was the sound of his own arrogance coming back like an echo. He scrubbed forward to the Q&A session. A young woman in the audience asked, "Did your past experience shape Aethra's mission?" Seren nodded slowly. "I was once told I wouldn't survive a day without someone, that my value depended on the world I was allowed into, so I left and created a world where I didn't need permission." The audience broke into applause. But her voice continued. Soft, surgical. "You don't need revenge to reclaim yourself. You just need the courage to walk away and mean it." Kaylin closed the video player, stared at his reflection in the black screen, then opened his browser. He searched Seren Alden plus Nico Vance plus Aethra Lisbon. A series of images popped up. Seren and Nico seated in a cozy cafe, laughing. No handlers, no forced smiles. She looked 10 years younger and completely unreachable. At home that night, he stood in front of the walk-in closet. Her side had remained untouched for weeks. He opened the drawer where she kept old sketches. Empty. He checked the safe. The original Aethra prototype files, gone. He didn't know whether to feel angry or ashamed. Meanwhile, in Lisbon, Seren and Nico sat in their new workspace, surrounded by a small, hungry team of engineers, designers, and wellness experts. The mood wasn't chaotic. It was focused. Real. "Investor calls start Monday," Nico said. "We've got media offers flying in." Seren nodded. "We don't take them all." "Agreed. I want the story to stay about the mission, not the marriage. You're the mission now." Seren gave him a look. "That's not the point." "It is to the women watching," he replied. Outside, the sun dipped behind terracotta roofs. Inside, Seren reviewed a launch deck. Nico leaned over, pointing to a section. "You didn't answer the most important question." She raised an eyebrow. "Which is, what happens when Kaylin reaches out?" Seren didn't look up. "I don't answer." In Manhattan, Reva was unraveling. First, one of the keynote events she was scheduled to speak at removed her name. Then 2 endorsement deals paused pending alignment. She paced her penthouse in bare feet, ranting into her phone. Everyone is acting like she invented wellness. I was part of that idea. Her friend on the other end mumbled something half-hearted. Reva snapped. She stole my moment. But even she didn't believe it anymore. At a press roundtable the next morning, Seren was asked directly, "Do you have any comment about Kaylin Dravos's rumored wellness platform?" Seren's response was calm. "No. My work isn't in response to anyone else's. It's a continuation of the purpose I started before anyone believed in it." That line spread faster than the funding news. Nico later pulled her aside. "That quote," he said, smiling. "Tattoo-worthy." Seren laughed for the first time in days. A full one. It was that sound, the soft return of joy, that made her finally believe. She was no longer surviving. She was leading. In a late-night board meeting, One of Kaelin's directors said it out loud. "She beat you." Kaelin didn't argue. He only said, "She earned it." The world didn't stop for Seren Alden. It adjusted to her. Within 1 week of Aethra's funding announcement, the following happened. 2 major wellness companies pulled out of their contracts with Dravos Tech. A prominent women's magazine featured Seren on the cover under the headline, "The Woman Who Walked Away and Didn't Look Back." Aethra's beta app saw 160,000 waitlist signups in 72 hours. And through it all, Seren said nothing personal. No messy interviews, no tell-all memoir, no post-subtweeting. Only this: quiet power isn't just a tagline, it's the foundation. Meanwhile, Kaelin was fighting fires, not business ones, ego ones. At a private dinner, one investor asked, "So, how does it feel to be on the other side of her story?" Kaelin took a sip of wine. "You're assuming I'm not still in the story." The investor raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that?" Back in Lisbon, Seren reviewed the second stage Aethra design proposals: the meditation pods, the sleep rhythm tool, the breath tracker with emotional mapping. Everything she had envisioned during sleepless nights in a marriage that dismissed her. Now, it was real. Nico stood by the whiteboard, marker in hand. "You good with this rollout plan?" he asked. Seren nodded, then paused. "Add 1 more city." "Which?" "New York." He raised an eyebrow. "You ready for that?" She smiled, cool even. Later that afternoon, she recorded a short video for Aethra's internal team. She wore a soft blue blouse, hair natural, eyes focused. "What we're building isn't about trend. It's about tools. It's about reminding people that they don't have to break to matter." It was meant for her team only, but a snippet leaked and went viral. "You don't have to break to matter." That line showed up on shirts, notebooks, even Instagram bios. By the end of the week, Aethra was being described as a spiritual tech movement. Seren didn't chase that description. She stayed grounded in function. Meanwhile, Riva was unraveling faster. She tried to post a wellness thread on social media. It backfired. People flooded her comments with clips of Seren saying similar things. 2 years earlier, brands began distancing. Her invites dried up. She called Kaelin in a panic. "You need to fix this." "I can't," he said. "She's making me look like a fraud." "She's not even trying," Kaelin replied, voice flat. In a rare moment of self-awareness, Riva sat in front of her bathroom mirror and whispered to herself, she didn't need to fight, because she already won. That same night, Kaelin opened his laptop and typed an email he never sent. Subject: "We built something beautiful once." He hovered over send, then deleted it. Instead, he booked a ticket to Lisbon. He didn't expect a reunion. He didn't even know what he was hoping for. Maybe closure, maybe clarity, maybe a chance to see the life she built without him and understand how she did it. When he landed, the headlines were already ahead of him. Kaelin Dravos spotted in Lisbon ahead of Aethra's international press night. Awkward or overdue? Billionaire visits city where ex-wife's empire now stands. He checked into a quiet hotel, made no calls, went nowhere public. But that night, outside Aethra's Lisbon office, he stood across the street watching, not stalking, just observing. Through the glass windows, he saw her, hair tied back, laughing with her team, Nico beside her, holding a prototype in one hand and coffee in the other. Kaelin stayed in the shadows and smiled, a real one. For the first time, he understood. She hadn't left to win. She'd left to live. If you've ever been dismissed, ignored, or told you couldn't survive without someone, then you already know why Seren built Aethra. Have you ever had to walk away just to be seen again? Drop a comment below. Hit like if you believe silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. And subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more journeys where quiet becomes power. The Tech Rise Global Summit was where tech giants came to show dominance. Stage time meant relevance. Panel invites meant legacy. And Seren Alden, she wasn't invited. She was scheduled as the closing keynote. The summit ballroom held over 1,000 people, industry leaders, investors, media outlets, influencers, startups, old money, new vision. Banners hung from the ceiling with speakers' names. Kaelin's was one of them. So was hers. He saw it as soon as he walked in. Closing keynote, Seren Alden, CEO, Aethra. He hadn't flinched when the invite arrived weeks ago. He told himself he was attending to network. But here, now, seeing her name on the same wall, something tightened in his chest. Meanwhile, Seren sat backstage reviewing her notes. Not a speech, not a script, just a few reminders in her handwriting. Say less, mean more, no defense, no shade. This isn't about him. Nico walked in, holding a small bottle of water. You good? He asked. She looked up. Calm. As good as I'll ever be. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Then, it's time. Earlier in the day, Kaelin had spoken on a panel about data plus mental health. He gave the usual talking points. He quoted research. He smiled for the cameras, but something in his delivery felt hollow. When someone asked about Aethra, he pivoted. Different audiences, he said. Different approaches. The moderator pressed. But do you respect what Seren's building? Kaelin paused. Yes, he said finally. I didn't before, but I do now. The clip made it online before Seren walked on stage, but she hadn't seen it. She didn't need to. She wasn't there to respond. The announcer's voice echoed, "Please welcome our closing speaker, Seren Alden." The lights dimmed. The crowd hushed. She walked out in a soft cream suit. No flash, no slides, no branded backdrop, just her. I was once told I wouldn't last a day on my own, she began. No name, no funding, no protection. And for a while, I believed that the room held still. Because sometimes the worst betrayal isn't someone else's voice. It's our own, repeating what they said. She let that sit, then smiled faintly. But when I stopped believing that voice, I started building. She didn't name Kaelin. She didn't mention Reva. She didn't bring up the past like a weapon. She presented it like a bridge, one she had walked across. Kaelin sat in the front row. He didn't blink, didn't shift, just watched. She was powerful without posture, commanding without volume. Everything he once said she wasn't. She had become without his permission. Seren's final lines were soft. This world doesn't need louder leaders, it needs deeper ones. The kind who don't show up because they were invited, but because they built the room themselves. A standing ovation followed, not because it was polite, because it was earned. As she stepped off stage, Kaelin stood. She saw him. He walked forward. Staff tried to pull her away, but she raised a hand. It's okay, she said. He approached slowly. Congratulations, he said. She nodded. You always said I couldn't do it, she replied. I was wrong. She didn't say thank you. He didn't expect her to. He hesitated, then added, I meant what I said on stage. I respect what you've done. She smiled faintly. I didn't build it to earn your respect. That landed like truth always does, quiet and sharp. He looked down, then met her gaze again. Would you ever? She stopped him with a slight tilt of her head. I forgave you, she said. He blinked. For me, she added, not for you, then turned and walked away. The after-party was loud, too loud. Everyone wanted to speak to Seren. Investors, journalists, executives, all buzzing with praise, validation, interest. But Seren wasn't hungry for noise. She left quietly before midnight. In her apartment, she kicked off her heels and poured chamomile tea. Her phone buzzed non-stop. She turned it over. She stared at her reflection in the glass window for a moment, then whispered softly, You did it, not out of pride. Across the city, Kaelin sat in a hotel suite he hadn't planned to stay in. The minibar remained untouched. His phone blinked with missed calls from Reva, his team, and a dozen media requests. He ignored them all. All he could hear was her voice. I forgave you. For me, not for you. It wasn't cruel. It was final. He walked to the desk and opened his laptop. For the first time in his life, he searched his ex-wife's platform, not as a rival, but as a student. He downloaded Aethra's early access app, logged in. The interface was simple, smooth, intentional. The first prompt read, "Welcome, take a breath. This isn't for performance, it's for peace." He stared at it longer than necessary, then closed the laptop. At Aethra HQ the next morning, Seren walked into a quieter office. Her team had already sent out thank you emails, processed the summit leads, and started onboarding new trial users. She didn't check numbers. She checked tone. Tone mattered more. Nico entered holding 2 coffees. "World domination can wait a few hours," he said. She smiled and took a cup. "I ran into Kaylin last night," she said. Nico raised an eyebrow. "You okay?" "More than okay," she said. He studied her face. "You mean that?" She nodded. "I saw him for what he is, which is the man I used to need, but never actually had." Later that afternoon, her Lisbon office hosted its first international visitor, a Nigerian psychologist working on mindfulness programs for trauma survivors. Seren sat with her on the rooftop patio, taking notes and offering resources. Not once did she mention Kaylin. Not once did she mention what she'd left behind. She only talked about what she was building next. Back in New York, Riva was scrambling. 2 wellness investors cancelled. A podcast dropped her as a guest. An internal staff member leaked emails showing she'd plagiarized Seren's early proposal language. The media didn't drag her. They ignored her, which was worse. At a private industry event, a tech journalist asked Kaylin, "What do you think your ex-wife's legacy will be?" Kaylin didn't pause. She already left it. "I was just too arrogant to see it." The reporter blinked. "So, are you saying she won?" Kaylin looked past the cameras. She didn't need to win. She just needed to leave. That clip went viral, not because it was dramatic, but because it was the first time Kaylin Dravos had been publicly honest. And it wasn't about him. In Lisbon, Seren sat with her team reviewing app user feedback. One comment stood out. "I left a toxic job, and this app gave me the structure to breathe again. Thank you, Seren. I don't even know you, but I feel like I owe you everything." She didn't cry, but she did pause, and she whispered, "You don't owe me anything. You just needed someone to show you how to start." At dusk, Nico joined her at the river. They sat on a stone bench in silence. He finally asked, "Do you miss him?" She thought about it, then answered, "No. I miss the version of me who thought love meant enduring everything. But that version of me is gone." Nico didn't enter Seren's life like a whirlwind. He walked in like a whisper, steady, unassuming, always with presence, never with pressure. That's what made her trust him. Not the investments, not the business savvy, but the way he never tried to compete with her silence. It started as long working hours, sitting across from each other, sharing meals between pitch decks and prototype tweaks. Then came the jokes. Then came the pauses between conversations that weren't awkward. They were comfortable. One night, after a quiet product test run, Seren turned to him on the rooftop and asked, "Why did you back me? Really?" Nico tilted his head. "Because I knew you weren't trying to prove anything. You were trying to build something." She studied him. "And you didn't think I was a risk?" "You were a risk," he said. "But so is anything worth doing." Over time, the world started noticing them. Photos leaked. Nico and Seren walking through the streets of Lisbon, shoulders almost brushing. Tabloids tried to spin it. Is Nico Vance the power behind Aethra's CEO? Tech's quiet couple? Or just business? Seren ignored it. So did Nico. But when the media asked directly, he gave only one line. "I don't power Seren. She powers herself. I just don't get in the way." At Aethra HQ, the team didn't whisper. They saw what was there. It wasn't romantic tension. It was grounded respect. A kind of closeness that didn't ask for validation. Then came the TED Global invite. They wanted Seren to speak, but not about Aethra. They wanted her personal journey. Her response? "I don't speak about the past unless it teaches." Nico overheard and asked, "What would you teach?" She smiled softly. "How to walk away from what diminishes you, before it becomes the only voice you recognize." That afternoon, Nico brought her a framed quote, one she had once said absent-mindedly during a staff brainstorming session. "Your peace isn't a luxury, it's a metric." She stared at the frame. "Why this?" "Because you keep forgetting that it applies to you too." Later that night, over dinner, she finally asked the question that had lingered in the air for weeks. "Nico, why didn't you ever try to date me?" He set his fork down. "Because you weren't ready. And I didn't want you to mistake healing for romance." She blinked. He continued, "But if one day you stop asking that question like it's a test, ask it like it's an invitation." Silence again. But this time, it was full of things she wasn't yet ready to say, but no longer afraid to feel. Back in New York, Kalen watched the Lisbon photos circulate online. The headlines didn't bother him anymore. The comments didn't sting. What did? The way Seren looked in those photos. Unburdened, like someone who had stopped proving her worth to anyone, even herself. He attended a charity gala that weekend, alone. When asked about Seren, he replied honestly, "She was the best part of me. I just didn't know how to hold her." Meanwhile, in Lisbon, Seren stood in front of a mirror preparing for a small podcast interview. The host was young, bright-eyed, clearly nervous. But her first question was unexpected. "What did love look like after you left the man who broke your heart?" Seren paused, then replied, "Love looked like not rushing to replace pain with noise. Love looked like waiting until I could hear my own voice again." The night was quiet. No emails, no launches, no calendar reminders. Just a warm breeze slipping through Seren's open window and the soft clink of a spoon against porcelain. She was making tea the way her mother taught her, 2 minutes steeped, never rushed, no talking until the second sip. The world had given her headlines. But moments like this, she gave herself. There was a knock at the door. She opened it to find Nico, holding 2 cups of cinnamon tea. "I guessed," he said. She let him in with a small smile. They sat on her couch, barefoot, no laptops in sight. Not work, not partnership, just presence. "You ever think about the version of yourself that stayed?" Nico asked. Seren looked down. "Too often. What would she be doing tonight? Waiting for someone to say sorry. And you?" "I'm not waiting anymore." Silence stretched. Not uncomfortable, just full. Then Nico said it. Plain, not romantic. "I don't want to be the man who replaces your hurt. I want to be the man you grow toward." Seren didn't move, didn't answer right away. She stared at her tea, steam curling toward the ceiling. Then finally replied, "You already are." Back in New York, Kalen sat at a board dinner. His phone buzzed with a news alert. AITHRA's upcoming US expansion includes youth wellness scholarships for underrepresented girls. He didn't flinch. He simply turned his phone face down. He had nothing to offer that story anymore, and he knew it. In Lisbon, Seren and Nico sat on the rooftop an hour later, watching the city lights breathe in and out. She didn't ask what they were. He didn't push her to define anything. They just existed, not for labels, not for posts, not for a second chance at love, but for a real one that didn't ask for proof. Seren broke the silence. "You know, I used to think love was something you earned by shrinking." Nico raised an eyebrow. "And now?" She smiled. "Now I think it's something that doesn't flinch when you grow." At that moment, a shooting star crossed the Lisbon sky. Neither of them wished. They didn't need to. They had already chosen to live differently. The morning was slow, not sluggish, steady. Seren arrived at the AITHRA office early, long before the rest of the team. She liked to open the windows, hear the city breathe, and water the small rosemary plant on her desk. This ritual wasn't part of a productivity hack. It was peace. On her desk sat a delivery envelope. No sender name. Inside, white tulips, her mother's favorite. Attached was a handwritten note. You win. Come home. K. No punctuation. No plea. Just 6 words trying to erase years. She placed the card face down, then opened her laptop and started the day. Across the ocean, Kalen stared at his sent message folder. The tracking ping confirmed it had been delivered. He expected silence, but deep down, he also expected something more. Forgiveness, a reply, a second chance. He refreshed his inbox. Nothing. Saren walked down the hallway that afternoon with the card tucked in her palm. She didn't say anything about it, didn't mention it to Nico, didn't mention it to her team, didn't journal about it. She simply walked into her assistant's office and said, "Recycle this." That was her answer. No drama, no performance, just a clean refusal. Later that evening, she stood by her apartment window and looked out at the street below. Lisbon was glowing. People moved like rhythm, not race. Her phone buzzed. "Nico, dinner? I have something you'll like." She smiled. Yes, 7 works. No questions, no tension, no need to explain what had arrived that morning. Because what mattered now wasn't what begged for her return, it was what made her never want to leave. Meanwhile, Riva sat across from a crisis PR consultant. Everything was falling apart. "No one wants to touch your brand while hers is trending," the consultant said plainly. Riva threw her pen. "She's not even doing anything flashy." "Exactly," the woman replied. "That's what makes her untouchable. She's not reacting, she's just existing." Riva leaned back in her chair. "I underestimated her." The woman nodded. So did everyone else. In Manhattan, Kalen skipped another industry dinner. He sat alone in his penthouse, scrolling through Saren's Aethra page again. He read the testimonials. "This app reminded me I exist outside of other people's expectations. Aethra saved me from burnout, and from myself. Saren Alden doesn't talk at you. She builds with you." He read those lines like a man reading his own obituary. Not because he was dead, but because the version of him that mattered to her was. In Lisbon, Saren and Nico sat at a small bistro tucked behind a bookstore. He brought takeout, roasted vegetables, grilled chicken, and flatbread. They ate with ease. No tension. No subtext. After the plates were cleared, Nico pulled out a small envelope. "What's that?" she asked. He slid it across the table. "A thank you." Inside was a photo of the Aethra Lisbon team on launch day. They were laughing, arms around each other, mid-celebration. Saren blinked. "You framed it. I want you to remember," he said, "what you built. So when old voices come back pretending they matter, you have proof that they don't." Saren set the frame beside her plate. "I never thought I'd get this far." Nico smiled. "You didn't get this far. You returned to who you were before they made you forget." 3 days before Christmas, Saren attended a youth panel hosted by Aethra. The topic wasn't tech. It wasn't fundraising. It was this. What does it mean to be well? She didn't speak first. She listened. One girl, barely 16, said, "It means knowing I don't have to smile when I'm tired." Another, "It means feeling safe enough to say no." A boy in the back, "It means asking for help without fear." Saren blinked quickly. This, not the numbers, not the downloads, was why she built Aethra. After the panel, a girl approached her shyly. "Ms. Alden, my mom used to work for Gravus Corp. She said you were always kind." Saren smiled softly. "Tell your mom I said thank you. She said when you left, things changed." Saren nodded. "They did. But now, I build places where people don't have to whisper to be heard." That night, she received another message. From Kalen, subject, none body. It was never about love. It was about control. "I know that now." She didn't reply. She didn't delete it either. She let it sit, a record of a man finally saying what she already knew. Meanwhile, Riva was dropped by her luxury wellness partnership. The press was quiet but effective. A small blog wrote an op-ed titled, "When Wellness is Performed, Not Lived." It never mentioned her name, but it didn't have to. The photo embedded beneath the article showed Aethra's Lisbon launch. Seren, smiling in the background, surrounded by young girls, no spotlight, just warmth. On Christmas Eve, Seren stayed in. No parties, no headlines. She made cinnamon cookies, burned one tray, watched an old film, and laughed alone. Then her phone lit up with a picture from Nico, a small lantern-lit table with 2 mugs of cocoa. Caption: "Next year, this spot's reserved." She smiled and replied, "Make sure the cocoa's hot." In New York, Kalen stared out the glass wall of his penthouse. He had the lights, the view, the silence, but none of them whispered her name anymore. He poured himself a drink he didn't finish and muttered under his breath, "She built something that doesn't need me." And for the first time in his life, that truth didn't make him angry. It made him small. Lisbon rang with distant bells. Seren lit a candle. No wishes, no resolutions, just presence. And in that stillness, a quiet truth, she had reclaimed herself. Not for applause, not for revenge, but for freedom. 2 months later, Seren stood in front of the mirror in her Lisbon apartment. Not adjusting makeup, not straightening hair, just breathing. Today wasn't a launch. It wasn't a press event, but the New York Chronicle was publishing a feature titled, "Co-founder returns to quiet power, the Seren Alden way." She hadn't approved the headline, but she'd approved the interview, not because she wanted attention, but because too many women never got to tell their own version of a story once men and money rewrote the first draft. The article dropped at 9 a.m. sharp. By 9:05, her inbox was full. From strangers, from former interns, from young founders, from mothers who had stayed silent at board meetings and now sent quiet thanks. She didn't reply to them all. She couldn't, but she read every one and whispered, "I see you too." Kalen opened the same article in his office. He didn't skim it. He read every word, twice. No bitterness, no sarcasm, just respect. She had become something he never imagined. Not famous, not rich, whole. That same day, Seren walked past Aethra's Lisbon lobby. A new mural had been installed. It showed a girl, eyes closed, surrounded by words like rest, strength, truth, stillness, and power. Beneath it, a plaque. For those who had to leave the room to remember who they were. Seren smiled. She didn't ask who wrote the words. Later that evening, a surprise package arrived at her apartment. No name, just a velvet box. Inside, a pendant. Simple, silver, engraved, ASW. It wasn't jewelry. It was an apology, a reference to her initials before marriage, before Mrs. Gravos, before the rooms that shrunk her voice. She put the pendant back in the box, sealed it, and set it on the shelf behind her books. It wasn't rejection. It was closure. Meanwhile, Riva launched a podcast. Episode 1, Breaking Out of Someone Else's Brand. She didn't mention Kalen. She didn't need to. Everyone who listened knew. She talked about regret, about ambition, about what women sacrifice to survive in elite circles. Ironically, she sounded more grounded than ever. It wouldn't rebuild her image completely, but it was real. And real was finally trending. Seren walked through Lisbon's old quarter later that week, sipping tea, coat folded over her arm. She passed a bookstore and saw her photo in the window, magazine cover from the Chronicle. Someone had scribbled on it. She did it her way. Seren didn't stop. She didn't take a photo. She just kept walking. Because that was the real win, walking forward without needing anyone to see you. Saturday. Arlo hummed as he poured almond milk into a cereal bowl. "Want strawberries?" he asked, already reaching into the fridge. Seren nodded. "Please." They sat on the small balcony of the apartment, Lisbon's rooftops stretching out like burnt orange waves. No meetings, no emails, no expectations, just sun, silence, and them. Across from her, Arlo looked different, not because he cut his hair, not because he shaved, but because he stopped apologizing for wanting her. He no longer needed to explain where he fit into her life. He was already there, not as a title, not as a claim, but as a rhythm, a presence, a choice. He watched her sip tea, the sunlight tracing the edge of her cheek. "People keep stopping me," he said lightly. "Apparently, I'm the guy from the painting." Seren laughed. She knew what he meant. The Chronicle had included a photo of her painting, unfinished, hung in the corner of the living room. And in the background, Arlo, blurred but there, not posed, not perfect, just present. The irony? He never asked to be seen. And now, without trying, he had become part of her narrative. Later that day, they walked through the mercado. Vendors offered figs, honey, cured cheese. At one stall, a woman selling handmade journals whispered, "You helped me leave him, your story, the article." Seren blinked. The woman didn't wait for a reply. She handed Seren a leather-bound journal with gold lettering. Arlo watched as Seren held the journal to her chest. When they got home, she opened it and wrote the words, "I never wanted revenge. I wanted release." That evening, Kaylin finally sent a message. Just 2 words. "You win." Seren saw the notification, read it, closed it. She didn't reply, not because she was cold, but because the version of her that needed his recognition no longer existed. She didn't need to win. She needed to be well. Across the city, Riva recorded episode 3 of her podcast. The theme, "Ego costs more than equity." She didn't flinch this time. She named situations. She didn't protect names, not to burn bridges, but to admit how many she built out of fear instead of foundation. In a private Zoom with a women's accelerator, Seren answered a question about power. "What changed you?" someone asked. She smiled gently. "I used to think I needed approval. Then I learned I only needed alignment." On Sunday, Seren painted again. Not for the gallery, not for the article, but for herself. Arlo played vinyl in the background, soft, scratchy jazz notes echoing through the apartment. This wasn't the life she planned, but it was the life she chose. As the sun began to set, Arlo walked over. He didn't say much. He stood behind her, hands gently on her shoulders. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. She turned slightly. "Not for surviving," he added, "but for never becoming them." There was no grand announcement, no final confrontation, no viral moment. Seren didn't need one. What she had was better, a life that no longer asked her to shrink for someone else's spotlight. She had peace. She had purpose. She had presence. And that's what she kept. This story isn't about revenge. It's about return. Not to what was, but to who she was before being rewritten. She didn't need applause. She needed alignment. And once she found it, everything changed. What can we take from Seren's journey? Power doesn't need noise. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one who sees everything and still chooses grace. Boundaries aren't abandonment. Leaving isn't always running. Sometimes it's returning to truth, to self, to stillness. You don't owe anyone your silence, especially not those who benefit from it. Love should never cost your voice. Real love doesn't dim you. It sits beside you while you shine. Rebuilding doesn't mean revenge. You don't have to get even. You just have to get whole. Kaylin's biggest shock wasn't losing Seren. It was realizing that for all his power, he never saw the woman standing beside him until she walked away. And Arlo, he didn't save her. He didn't fix her. He simply believed her. And in a world that constantly doubted her worth, that was the most radical thing anyone had done. Seren's story reminds us, sometimes the loudest justice is choosing joy and refusing to explain it. If you've ever been told to stay quiet to keep the peace, if you've ever been the invisible strength behind someone else's success, if you've ever chosen peace over payback, then you're not alone. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this video if you believe quiet power is real power. And subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories, where we don't just tell stories, We remember the ones the world tries to forget.